Today on The Rundown, we're breaking down the latest in tech news and taking a deep dive into robotics and their impact on society. From AI-driven automation to humanoid assistance and industrial robotics, we're exploring how these innovations are transforming industries, reshaping daily life, and redefining the future of work and human interaction. So let's get going. Welcome to The Rundown. Hello everyone, welcome, happy Thursday night. Good to see all of you here. If you are watching us on YouTube or in Mukana, please know that you can leave comments and chat and questions and all that. I'm trying to keep an eye on all of that. We'd love to hear your voices and bring them in. And I'm really looking forward to hearing the voices of some of our fantastic panelists tonight. Hello, Tamra, how are you?
I am good. We are rainy and wet here in Los Angeles.
Rainy and
very
wet.
cold.
Okay.
Cold by our standards.
I was going to say, you know, depending on what's happening in your neck of the woods, that may not be a terrible thing. Given
it's both. We always want water when we haven't had any, but after with our recent fires, we're getting a lot of flash flood warnings and lots of beeping from our emergency broadcast system.
Gotcha. Well, I'm happy to have you here.
Thanks.
And
I'm happy to be here.
We have Mr. Sky Gleason. Hello, Sky.
Where?
Right there.
Oh, right here.
How you doing?
Hi.
I like
from
that
the cold and snowy Pacific Northwest. Well, Pacific Northwest. Yes, this hat is Irish, as am I, but it also blocks my eyes. So, and it's keeping my head warm. So, thank you.
I love it. And next up, we have Miss Lois. Hey, Miss Lois.
Hello. And I'm with Tamara. Well, I'm a few hundred miles north of Tamara, but here it's, we had frost and freezing for a week, and then it started this storm, raining, and the winding and the rain's going sideways, and it's
oh, dear Lord.
Yeah, kind of a blustery day.
All right. Well, it better get nicer up there because I'm heading out there tomorrow. So I need some nice California weather, please.
Yeah, I'll wait till Saturday.
Well, if that doesn't work, I'll just go up and visit Dave in Canada.
Mm-hmm. It's really sunny up here.
See? There you go. Perfect.
We don't get atmospheric rivers because we have all these mountains in the way like Colorado has, and they block it. And by the time it gets to us, it's dry air. So we have somewhat desert areas in the southern part of our province and wintry and almost tundra up in the north. So I'm in the middle, so I'm easy at both.
As long as Tamara gets the atmospheric rivers, because that's her favorite thing in the world. Or at least her favorite. What did you say was your favorite? What? Your favorite?
It's one of my favorite weather words.
Weather words. Yeah. That's what it is.
Except for bomb cyclone. She likes that one too.
Because the East Coast has really good weather words and the West Coast has less cool weather words.
We have storm. Bill, what's your favorite weather word? Oh, wait a second. You're not in this picture. Wait a second.
Oh,
where are you?
Wait a second. Where am I? That's a better picture of me than you would get if I was in the picture.
Put you in the picture. Hold on a second.
That's right, because he had to restart his camera.
Where's Bill? Did I not assign you, Bill? Oh, you didn't have your camera on.
There I am. That's scary.
Anyway. Sorry, Bill.
There are too many weather words. I will say, though, that we had 65 days without measurable rain until this last couple of storms went through. So we are grateful.
We'll take it. Yeah.
With exponentials, with large exponentials. We are totally happy that we are now getting some things down, some moisture down here by the southwest border, the largest port of entry in the country, San Ysidro.
Well, good to have you all here. Good to have you and your rain and your weather, because we have some news to get to. Because not here, but over the river and through the woods, was it in France?
Paris.
In Paris, which is in France. Thank you.
Yes, right? It is.
Yeah.
Last time
I looked.
To make sure I wasn't losing my mind.
There's one in Texas too, so it could have been.
So there was a huge AI conference this past week. All the big players were there, but the the piece of it that I wanted to sort of bring out for us was this debate that is happening over regulation in AI. The European Union, and by the way, anyone who watches MacBreak Weekly, you know that this is a constant theme on MacBreak Weekly over on the Twit network about how the European Union is trying to sort of get access and just get in the way of the way Apple runs its business. Its focus on privacy. Its focus on not allowing people to have backdoor keys to things. Well, now the European Union is saying that they want to have a voice in regulations around AI. They want to put up guardrails, and the U.S. and the U.K. would not sign on. And not because they don't want guardrails. I think because we don't want the European Union to define those guardrails, and we also recognize that those guardrails may need to be different depending on where you are in the world. What's your take?
It doesn't help to back out of an agreement just because you don't want to be part of the agreement. I mean, if you're not going to contribute to the agreement, you're not going to get what you want. So it's really silly to be able to say, well, we won't accept you guys being in charge. Well, okay, come and talk to us. Make it so that we're all in charge.
So how would guardrails be different in the US and Europe? David, that doesn't make sense to me.
Well, so I can't speak to the AI, but I'll just tell you what's happening with Apple is that the EU is saying that they need to have access, a backdoor to every encrypted message or anything that is sent over Apple, over anything. And Apple is saying, no, that we're not going to do that. And America is not asking for that. So that there's a difference in what they're requiring of the tech companies to do. And the same would be true of AI, I imagine, that the EU is going to...
It's so tricky. It's tricky because everybody wants complete privacy I want complete privacy for my stuff. But then you get somebody who's out there on the dark web doing child abuse, something, and you don't want complete privacy for them.
Right.
So it is so situational and so hard to manage that I don't think this is going to be solved in anybody's lifetime. If only there was a system so that all the people of goodwill could have as much privacy as they need to run their lives, and nobody took advantage of that, we'd be fine. But that's not the world we live in.
Right. And that's just that's the issue with dumb technology. Right?
Absolutely.
When you started with AI, Dave, was it you or someone? You got me going with this guy on TikTok, who I watch now incessantly about AI.
Nate.
Who mentioned Nate? Who brought Nate?
I didn't, but I'm obsessed with him too.
Somebody brought Nate up. This guy Nate, and now I can't get enough of him. He's brilliant the way he breaks this down. And I just watched a video of him saying, arguing that there's a new study that says that AI came up with their own ethical rules, and that it determined that in a hierarchy, were there to be a hierarchy, that certain human beings were more valuable than other human beings, and that AI was more valuable than human beings. Now, this was not in the reasoning models, and so he said we don't need to lose our minds right away. But when you have smart technology that can start thinking on its own, the question of what regulations are going to be in place to protect it and us becomes ever more important. Now, the U.S., it seems, by not signing on to this, their approach is, and I think this is also the approach of Sam Altman, the head of OpenAI, is let's kind of, and frankly, it's also the approach of Elon Musk. Let's go fast and break stuff, and then we'll clean up the mess afterward.
Because they have something to gain from that. I do think thinking about the summit, because I go back and forth. I love AI, but then there's also a part of me that also loves science fiction. So I'm like, what is the stopping point to where we have control or have regulations in place? And in a way, I think it's probably happened already. And now we're looking at trying to do regulations. But I kind of think of it in terms of, I always go back to the internet, and we did not have regulations, and now we kind of have the internet that it is now, and it's still in a lot of ways unregulated. And now we're trying to like put the genie back in the bottle, saying, hey, kids shouldn't have access. We're like, kids already have access. So there's a part of me that says, if you want to be part of the conversation of control, then you have to stay in the conversation of control, and you have to say, let's hash out what those regulations look like. The people who don't want regulations are people who have a lot to gain from that. And the people who have the least amount of control are users who don't have any say. So there is a part of me that's like, does America and the UK want to be out of that conversation? Just say, nope, we don't want to regulate it. We'll clean it up after. Is that the smartest move? I'm not sure, but I also understand the side of like, what is too much and what is not enough.
I think we're talking about nuclear weapons here, aren't we? I mean, mass destruction on a massive scale.
Right.
Mutually
had to be
assured
carefully
destruction.
negotiated over years and years and years without, limiting first testing, then
Right.
limiting access to the materials of making them, and then limiting how you can transport them, and then a notification system should one ever go missing. And all of that stuff took a decade or two to get put into place. It wasn't like people were dropping bombs all day long and we had to stop
Right.
them. It was just a recognition of the potential for devastation. I don't
And
believe
then
there's
that
a
got
devastating layer to the robotics. I'm still not sure that robotics is at the advanced stage of where it will turn around and say, I think you guys shouldn't be here.
Well, the models, who are they based on? I mean, everybody would be happy if the basic rule was what would Mr. Rogers do, but nobody would be happy with what would Genghis Khan do. So we're stuck in the middle of trying to figure out who gets to wait what and why. And is there ever going to be a consensus? And that's the problem for me, is that there's never a consensus,
Right.
because we're all in favor of rules as long as they're my rules. And
Well,
very few people are in favor of rules when they're somebody else's rules.
Yeah, I got to push back a little bit. That's not the world I live in, and it's not the world the majority of people on the planet live in. So I can't say that you guys and your freedom is widely spread across the world. It isn't. A lot of people live under a lot of rules,
Oh,
and they accept them because it makes life simple.
Yeah. And I think being out of the conversation, the conversation is going to happen without you. So wouldn't you want to be somewhere in that conversation if you have a point of view? If you just pull out and you don't have a point of view, and then you're like, well, we're just going to do it our way, you're going to do it your way, and we don't want any part of that. It's a little bit of arrogance to think that the conversation is going to stop because you've pulled out of the conversation. Is
They'll just
part
root
of
around you. Yeah.
right. And
So
that's
perspective.
getting back to the Paris AI Summit, were there any conclusions, David?
Yes.
It's still
and-
going on?
Well, yes. I mean, there was a. It's interesting. In some ways, what happened there is mirroring the debate that's happening in America right now, more generally about the role of government. There's this just tension between bureaucracy, red tape, which often provides safety and security and process, and then the trimming back and going fast and breaking things. And so there's a real debate there. Again, I think that the difference in this case is that is that there are real concerns about safety. So the Stanford Institute of Human-Centered Artificial Intelligence, Russell Wald, said safety is not going to be the primary focus, but instead it's going to be accelerated innovation and the belief that the technology is an opportunity, and safety equals regulation. Regulation equals losing that opportunity. Right? So these
It'd be nice if you could define safety.
Say again?
I said it'd be nice if you could define safety. One person's safety is another person's jeopardy. And that's the problem. I mean, I want to be safe, so I want to build a wall around my stuff. But if the only water hole in the neighborhood is on my wall interior, then suddenly I'm in conflict with everybody. And that's been the way it's been throughout human history. that safety and community are often in tension.
And yet AI is such that it is, unlike a watering hole, which can touch a few, AI is going to touch everyone. And so I would say that the argument for safety regulations, the argument for some restrictions, or at least working together, is that this isn't just going to help or threaten a few lives. We're talking about humanity.
So we've lived as a species through massive change in the past because of pandemics and health issues. So historically, I think we've never been through a pandemic before. Well, now we have. And we, so far, are on the other side of basically that initial shock. And again, I think it's the acceleration of change that is hard to grasp onto, hard to hang on to the horse.
And there's the globalization problem of that, because, there's a constituency that says that came from the other side of the world. There's a constituency said that it was a local problem in America that you had to treat as Americans, and every country had to deal with that. How much of it is me being at the mercy of the public health systems in other places, because as soon as it gets on the plane and travels to my place, it's suddenly my concern. It's very complicated and very nuanced. And here's my concern. Is AI developing so quickly that not just the people who are super intelligent and who are devoting themselves to studying it, but the general population, does the general population have a clue about how to even vote for regulations to control it? Right. I don't think they understand it much at all. And so you're asked to vote on something.
That comes back to conversation, though, because using the pandemic is a perfect example. That pandemic had a name and a diagnosis faster than anyone else. Within 7 days, we knew what this was. And that was because we had global conversations happening. That wasn't just the US or just the UK. That was at its best what global conversation can do. So this is also something that requires global conversation. And so if every time we get into a conversation, and this happens we see it in our politics all the time, is we have lost the ability to have a debate and to have conversation with each other. And what happens is we say, wow, it's not going my way. I'm going to take my toys and I'm going to go home. And that is how 4-year-olds have conversations. And is that what we really want for our world global society, is to not be able to have a conversation where some people think one way and some people think another way? So to me, I think pulling out and not wanting to have the conversation because you don't like where it's going, you need to stay and have more conversation. And to me, that's what I read out of this.
Welcome to America with our 4-year-old conversation.
Not to go too far down the AI thing, I think, international air travel needed a conversation. And they all had to agree on what the language of air travel was going to be for pilots. And this was really pushed back against African countries and Asian countries who had higher populations. But then it was determined that economically, the only people who could afford to fly at the time seemed to speak English. So that's how it dominated. We might see the same thing. AI can work in different languages. AI can be intercepted and changed. And we don't know yet what the extent of its influence on us is. Is it going to be sewing our shirts? Is it going to be doing our shoe leather? We don't know even if it's going to build better airplanes, but we have to have more evidence of what it can do before we can start putting guardrails around it, because you can't capture fog. And
so you're an innovation before safety person.
I think safety comes with it, and there's a sense of responsibility to those who are building it to communicate their concerns. And that happened actually already with the people who developed AI. They started splitting into groups that were for or against it. So
when Boeing said its engineers, I mean its executive staff to Chicago and away from the plant here locally, I talked to the engineers and they said the original planes were built by engineers, and now they're being built by salespeople.
Yes. Yes.
how do you want to fly on what kind of a vehicle? So that's a thought I throw out there as to your point of hurry fast, break stuff.
Right.
Lois,
One of the things I think
kill
we need
people.
to look at is we are as a group saying AI and subsuming all sorts of things in that. There are different AI, even if you look at the different programs or the different things that you can buy, and they are made by different people and they are based on different things. And you do not know, and you will not know as a regular person, what the values of that AI is, what has been taught to it, whether it is,
Well, it comes to the question of utility. There's utility AI directed at certain functions, and then there's general AI, which is not yet prominent. General AI would do many different things without having to be told. Utility AI requires you to direct it, kind of like a Roomba.
And here's a challenge for you. Are the only people who are going to be able to master this technology people with enough leisure time to be able to study it? Because it's come upon us so fast.
Or Bill, how about also with the money?
Yeah.
Right?
It's going to be built into things.
Yeah.
It's not going to be that I, as an end user, will need to know about AI. It's going to be in stuff. And I won't know.
Well, it's going to be affecting you.
Going to do.
But is it going to be affecting you with your control, or is it going to be affecting you with some entity controlling how your new bank account balancing system that is AI driven works, and you have no concept of what the algorithm
how
is
they're
doing.
figuring that out?
That's what I think.
It's similar to computers. Computers are obsequious, and we don't know where half of them are, and people don't. I was having a conversation the other day, and I'm like, well, we'll need another computer for this, and they're like, well, it doesn't have a computer, it's just a camera. I'm like, no, that particular device is also a computer. And the misunderstanding of just how things are around us that we don't know, that is really the potential of AI, is that right now we can see it, it's everywhere. There will be a point when we can't see it. So that's, again, where I think conversation has to happen.
That's where the
some can see it. Some can see it. Some aren't even looking. And there's a huge majority of the population in the world that doesn't have the time. I mean, they're busy feeding themselves, trying to keep their children safe, and they don't have time to look at any of this stuff. And how far behind are they going to fall because they don't have that leisure time to study this stuff?
So that gets back to, is it our collective responsibility to put some safeguards on it for those people who aren't going to be heavy into the technology?
And that's why we have
government. It'll be
government.
interesting to see what comes out of Paris.
Yeah. Ernesto, and this really goes to our main topic for today, but he's watching and hi, by the way. He says, our company has moved to Workday for supply chain. Workday has laid off 1,700 employees to make room for demand in AI. We're gonna talk more about because AI is integral also to the robotics that are coming into the workforce. Right. But before we do that, just one other thing. So I'm a fan of Bill Maher, and this past week on Bill Maher, he was talking about the Super Bowl. So quick show of hands, how many people, please God help me, how many of you watched the Super Bowl?
At least a good chunk of it.
Lois and Dave and Tamara, I'm so disappointed.
Well, you shouldn't be disappointed with me because it's not something that's available up here unless you're paying money into a stream.
Lois and Tamara have
excuse whatsoever. It is streamed up here. We also have that same problem with our championship football game. You have to have cable to see it.
So Bill Maher went on a rant about, he said, oh, you can't see it.
It's coming.
I need to bring it up.
Push that other button.
I didn't have to watch it to agree with Bill Maher, by the way.
No?
That's one of the reasons I don't watch it.
So he says, there we go. Sorry about that. Well, why does that look so weird? That's interesting. I don't know.
It's a window in a window.
In any case, so his argument was that moving to streaming for things like the Super Bowl is a terrible mistake because we lose all control, right? At least when we can fast forward through the commercials, we can do this, we can do that. He says the streaming experience is subpar compared to the network experience. So, first question is,
I agree with that.
Are
If they're
any
not
of you,
streaming, what are they doing? I mean, you're seeing it in real time, aren't you?
no, but
No,
a
there are
streaming
just so many
service
outlets.
like Netflix
Yeah.
versus
Yeah.
NBC or Fox.
Because it was
or-
on so many outlets. Peacock, which is a form of NBC, had a piece of it. They call them now over-the-top services, right? There's so many Hulus and all those, the rest of those things. And so the Super Bowl was on 3 or 4 different platforms for me. My local cable provider, Spectrum, had a feed of it. Looked fabulous. Peacock, I think, had a feed of it. Looked fabulous. I can't remember whether it was them or somebody
Over
else.
the air
So
broadcast.
how
on
is
it,
that
yeah.
different from streaming?
I
Well,
think streaming, his point with streaming is that streaming is not an ideal way to watch anything. It isn't like DVR or VCR where you could fast forward and see yourself fast forwarding. So you can't skip things that you want to skip. To me, the experience is similar to the cassette tape.
This is a
Like, it
live show,
wasn't-
right? You're talking about a live show here?
Yeah.
How can you
Yeah.
Super Bowl
skip
is a
things
live
in
show?
live show?
Because you used to be able to tape things and watch them
Yeah.
later and be able to
Yeah.
skip through. You actually
You can
can't
still
do that.
with
But you
streaming.
can't see where you're skipping
No,
through.
you can. You can.
You can.
So you record the
I'm sorry,
stream,
but
right?
this show that we're doing right now gets in the way of the hockey game that always happens on a Thursday night, and my team is usually playing. And I have to wait till this is over. Then I go up, and my machine is not recording it. The stream allows me to start the whole thing over again halfway through the game. And then I can ignore the score of whatever somebody might accidentally tell me on camera, and then I can watch the rest of it. So you can do the same thing with the Super Bowl. You don't have to
can.
be there
The
for
fa-
4:30.
Dave,
The
I need your
fast
address.
stream.
Right.
I've got a whole case of VHS tapes that I'd love to
Yeah.
send you since you're still
Fast
recording and
VHS
using
tape.
No, I'm using the stream.
12,
offering.
12.
No,
He's
But
doing
like
cloud-
I even was
cloud
watching
what I look
something the
at
other day
is on
though,
the
in
sports channel,
streaming.
and I can hit
The
go
way
from
that
the beginning of the
streaming
show.
fast forward is different than when you used to fast
No,
forward.
I can see it going by, and when the commercial's over, I let go.
I can on some services, not on others.
Yeah, well,
So-
you'll have to get our service to do that, I guess.
Tamara, what you
Correct.
want is a mandate that says that everybody who's going to send content out has to hold it back long enough so the people who want to skip the commercials can. There
No,
shouldn't be a
I
live
think
option.
the replay of certain services is not as satisfying of an experience. It's similar to I use the cassette tape as a perfect example. The cassette tape was it was a great technology, except for the fact that you couldn't actually figure out where you were with ease, like you could with a record and like you eventually could with a DVD. So there's something in how streaming works that it isn't as pleasant of an experience. Does it mean it can't be fixed? No, of course it can be fixed. But even the way that the commercials are set into them, you can't skip over them. You can't record something. And so there's limitations. And I think that's Bill Maher's point, is that streaming has some limitations to it in terms of how it is produced that are not as good for the viewer and very good for the streaming service.
So
But that's
Dave,
their business model.
I did
Okay.
watch the Bill Maher experience. It was you should have told me where I was at. I had to turn the volume down because I forgot it was Bill Maher.
Sorry.
So David,
He's froze again.
what
He
do you
froze.
think is wrong with streaming?
There's
don't see
nothing
anything
wrong
wrong
with
with it.
There's nothing wrong with streaming.
Yeah.
Streaming is lovely. It's a very different experience than it can be a very different experience than watching network TV. And I'll get one of the things that he says is, I pay for Amazon Prime TV.
I watched the commercials.
Well, actually, that's what I was going to say. I pay for
That
Amazon
goes-
Prime TV, and I still have to watch commercials.
Right.
Yeah, and you go to a movie theater now and pay,
Why can't you use it for
$23
And you
for
have
the
to watch
movie theater,
commercials
and you
there
have to
too.
watch commercials.
You do.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's no way getting around it.
Oh,
So,
I don't know what happened there. Sorry.
oh, you're back. Hi.
You went away and came
What
back. That's all.
robotics? That's much
Zoom.
more interesting.
Zoom didn't like me.
Well,
Oh.
we
For a
love
moment
you, so
there,
don't
yeah.
worry.
So the robots who are controlling store and forward television is something you do have to pay attention to. And on the shows that I watch off of cable that are not in real time, the cable has gotten much better. Services, I don't know what cable system you're on. I tend to watch Spectrum as our local cable. And I also watch Amazon Prime, and a few others. And I can, in the midst of a show that I'm watching time shifted through the whole show piece, I can hit fast forward and I will get a whole bunch of blocks in like 5-minute increments, and I can navigate to wherever I want to go to and start and go back 2 scenes if I was out of the room for that. So most of the VCR functions that we're used to are coming into these streaming services. They're plumbing them in.
Maybe they're not there yet.
But there may be a contract with the advertisers that they don't want you to be able to do that. They want you to sit through the commercial.
$8 million, a
something they have-
30-second ad adecency for the Super Bowl this time.
Yeah,
So
Yeah,
you bet
absolutely.
they
what
don't
Bill
want
is
to
talking
happen.
about.
And that's the irony of the Super Bowl. So that's the
That's
one
what
time
Bill's
when
talking
people do
about. If
wanna-
they lose
yeah.
control, personal control, then he's got a point. But I don't think that's the case.
Yeah. All right. I need help. Please.
Help?
I'm really
The doctor
concerned.
is
How
in.
can we help you?
Go
I'm
ahead,
really,
David.
the doctor's in. I'm really concerned. I'm using ChatGPT way too much. Like I use it for everything. Today.
Generative addiction.
Yes, today I had a teacher who needed to write a message to a parent. She wrote it. I immediately took it. I put it into ChatGPT. It made it so much better. But I'm worried that I don't know. Is this okay?
You're losing skills? Are
So
you
what
losing skill?
are you feeling guilty about there, David? I mean, it's like having your own private editor.
Exactly.
Like having an assistant.
But there's a piece of me that feels like I'm not putting in the work.
Let me ask you this, David.
Ah.
If you were an executive and you had something to say and you called your assistant into the room and said, hey, could you type this up for me? And then you looked at it and edited it, would you feel guilty?
No, but that's a lot more work than what I did today.
Right. But
It's
what I'm saying is,
Copying what
like,
someone else wrote, shoving it in and just having it done is.
So what is the value of work you have?
It just feels like I'm cheating. That's all. It
No.
feels like I'm cheating.
absolutely.
if it helps
We're
a
gonna give you the
communication
same
between
answer.
you and a parent because it's clear, more concise communication, then that is going to save you a million problems that badly written emails from teachers
That's
to
true.
administrators. And I say this as a teacher who's written badly written email to a parent and had to then like deal with
Blow
it.
up in your
So-
face. Yeah.
Some of the things I think those things will free you up from doing the things that you need to be doing as an educator and, loving on the
Let me
kids.
play devil's
finding
advocate.
programs for them.
Yeah, go
And
for it.
support you feeling bad. I'm going to support you feeling bad about this, David.
Excellent.
What?
So
I want
here's
to
the
relieve
thing.
you of your pain. Come on.
Are we training a generation of users? I'm not going to say young people because it's everybody now.
Right.
A generation of users who are going to give up the ability to be creative in their communication in favor of the averaging that takes place in generative AI, right? We're going to look out at the huge large language model and we're going to give you what is most acceptable and most average. So will you get the E.E. Cummings, the James Joyces, the people who have
Yes, you
spent
will.
their lives doing something totally outside of the average that can spark wonder in society in favor of all this efficiency?
Well, because those people had time to be able to consider their story and write it down and say it.
No,
They
but
were
we have
given that time
Come
because
on,
they weren't
Dave.
working in the mills
No, but
or
we have time.
digging coal out of the ground.
I
We have
think that's the
time.
same argument we've had with books, with film, with TV, and we're having it here now. And creative beings
computers, yeah.
still rise to the top.
You know,
AI
so
is
it
not
does.
going to. AI
Yeah, but
is
will
going
there
to
be
do
as many
things-
of them? That's the question. That's what's got me
Oh, no.
worried is that we're going to beat creativity out of a generation because they're all going to be doing the same thing. using
Creativity
You'd
is
have
going
to
to
tell
be
me
a,
where that
no, no,
creativity
no.
comes from.
Hold on a
No,
second.
creativity's going to
Wait.
take on a different.
Hold on.
Yeah.
We're all good.
Hold on. Lois.
Thank you. I love it when you do that. The thing that you're missing here is that, yes, you ask someone, could you make that better? And the AI gives you a thing. You still look at it
Right.
and you say, is this better than that was? Can I improve it? Because I read that and I go, oh, no, it's supposed to be this way. So you are still being a creative person, even if you have this assistant writing things for you.
You're
And
I
as
would
far
challenge
as-
you.
As far as
I would
not-
challenge you just.
Wait.
Okay, go ahead,
Not-
finish. Yes.
because someone is seeing average things, if they are an exceptional writer, if they have that mind that's poetic and is creative, they aren't going to be satisfied with the average, and they are going to do more. So I don't think we have a worry about degrading our mentality because people are using an AI tool.
Interesting. Bill,
We have
My
a
thought
bigger
is that
worry
you,
that arts
Lois,
programs-
with your tradition, will do that. Will the fifth grader now? Or will the fifth grader now, who has never had the benefit of the kind of education and life experience you have, will they still go back and fight to put their creativity into it? Or will they just say, oh, this is so easy.
Yeah, okay.
I'm done.
Maybe
I'm
not
going to go
in
play
fifth
baseball.
grade, but by the time they get to ninth grade, I think they might.
We should be more
I wish
concerned.
you to be right.
We should be more concerned that they're taking the arts out of curriculums and out of schools than we should be about running
Why do you need art? You've got Mid-Journey. Why do
But
you need art?
again, if you can take some of the stuff that is made it so that we can't have arts in our schools, and we can't, that isn't a priority for us. If AI can solve that, then we need to be that's what we need to be focused on. That isn't, AI is not the thing that's pulling artistic creativity away from our kids. It is the fact that they do not have arts in their schools.
Right, we're pulling it.
And they
with you
may
there.
not have
Yep.
schools.
And they may not have schools.
Right.
I think
Well-
that my sense of guilt is coming. I wouldn't feel guilty if I was sure that these tools were doing the menial tasks so that I could have more time to focus on the important tasks. The question that I'm struggling with is communicate. Look, I'm a member of the clergy. I talk for a living. So communication has always been a fundamental, important task. And because that's the task that I'm now offloading, I think that's
But
what
you're
I'm
not.
struggling with.
You're not
No, you're not,
offloading.
yeah.
You're getting assistance for it. You are the one who ultimately decides whether or not that is good enough to put in your email.
Where
Would your
I do agree
would-
with you is what I worry about with AI is that it's going to turn out to be what email did. When email came into play, we were all going, this is great. This will free up time so that I have time to do other things. And in fact, email does not free up time. It gave us more work. And so that's the one thing that I think when I look at AI, I go, oh, this is the beginning of email. Where right now it's like a few things, and after a while, the things on your plate become so many things on your plate that you are passing off to AI because you don't have time to do them, and that I think is going to kill creativity.
Bill, go
in
ahead.
the way that
Dave. Sorry, Dave. Go ahead.
Well, I want to go back to the idea of creativity because, we haven't got a real good definition of how creativity appears. And we seem to think that it's sort of a, genetic thing and that you can't sort of discover your creativity. I took many years in high school where I was surrounded by all kinds of creative people, and they inspired me to try it myself. I didn't learn the guitar, but I saw a lot of people play the guitar really well, and I can appreciate great music. I don't think the electric guitar did anything to dissuade me from understanding symphonies. It didn't. It gave me a curiosity to find out more about these things. And I think AI, if somebody employs it, can actually be like inspirational. And we know people in our own circle here who use generative AI to sort of brainstorm with, and they start the creative process by sketching. Well, now we're sketching digitally. We're sketching with words. We're sort of trying out ideas, and then they reflect back on us, and we consider it, think about it. But if I didn't have a critical brain that said one thing is better than another, and I was brainwashed by whatever means that everything is the same, it doesn't matter, people just buy it, and it's okay. Well, no, we know what quality looks like, and if we learn how to distinguish quality, we'll demand it. And demanding it means you got to have creative people who produce it.
Someone was talking. I forget where I heard this, and the argument was, I would be fine if AI was focused on the menial tasks, but it's becoming so creative, the way it's able to craft language, the way it's able to craft images, the way it's able to make video. That's the stuff that we should be focused on. It should be doing, as we're going to talk about in a moment, the repetitive work in the factory. so that we can be freed up to do that more creative work. John on YouTube writes, in lieu of creative genius, we might get something perfectly personalized for each user with AI, I think he's saying, or give someone the power to be creative without the need for them to jump through traditional accreditation. Those are two really important. I was just today, I met with a company called synthesis.com. It's born out of SpaceX. So what the SpaceX folks built a school called Alpha Visa, something like that. Forgive me for forgetting the name. It's a really funky, cool school. And out of that was born Synthesis, which is essentially, it's an AI math tutor. But what's magical, or what will be magical about it, is that because it's AI driven, it can personalize what activities you should do next based on the feedback that you give it through assessments, through activities, things like that. So this idea that perfectly
Khan
personalized
Academy
for
does
each
that
user.
already.
Well, Khan Academy does
So
do
Khan
that.
Academy, where it has used a similar tactic. If you take the PSAT, your PSAT is put into the College Board site. You can then go to the Khan Academy section of that, and instead of saying, "Hey, your score was this, and you're going to study everything," it will say, "These are the areas that you need to study."
Right.
That are going to help you. So already we're seeing that be a successful,
absolutely.
Sky, totally helpful.
You're bringing me.
It's astronova.org.
Astronova, thank you. Sky is bringing me back 4 years ago when on office hours we all had to sit there with our hands raised. I feel like I've degraded the experience by not. Go ahead, Sky.
Well, and that's actually my point, because as a clergyman, your job is to connect with humans and have humans connect with one another, their faith, their belief. So consequently, I love Sunday morning on office hours. We talked about philosophical things about technology, and the quote came out of Alex's lips was, "What you measure matters." David earlier talked about the quality. So I think rather than worrying about the tools, because I'm sure your predecessors that used quill pens, and prior to that, it was the scribe was things on a clay tablet way back in the day. So now are we arguing over what kind of pencil? You're feeling guilty that you've got an ink pen?
That's
so
fascinating,
don't worry
Scott.
about the tool. Don't worry about the tool, brother. Worry about the human. Connect. That's your job.
An interesting way of thinking. I had not thought of it that way.
And your time is up.
Yeah.
And we may get to the point where you need a generative cleanse.
Your therapy is only 1 hour there, David.
ChatGPT is the new pen, pencil, typewriter,
Absolutely.
word processor. That's fascinating.
Absolutely.
I had not thought of that. Oh, I feel so much better.
It's a delivery device.
Help?
Thank you so much. I feel so much better about myself now. All right.
The bill's in the mail.
Let's go forward, my friends.
The name is kind of wrong. We're not talking about transportation
I know.
today. We're talking about robotics.
Why is that there? Robotics.
I don't know. It's not my sign.
There we go.
Robotics. That's what it is. So I wanted to talk about this in part actually because of CES 2025. I wasn't there, but I love watching the coverage.
What is CES?
I'm sorry?
What is CES?
Well, actually,
Consumer Electronics Show.
it is, but I don't think they don't call it that anymore. I think they just call it C. I heard at one point that even though, yes, that's what it stands for, they don't actually call it the, I don't know, doesn't matter. It's a bunch of electronics for consumers, and it's a show.
The biggest trade show in Las Vegas.
Yes,
traditionally.
there was a tremendous amount of automation, of robotics there. And of course, the flashy ones are the humanoid robots. And there were a few of those. There was quite a few of those. Some were cool. Others were terrifying. There's also quite a bit of robotics that are used in manufacturing and in plants. A lot of this stuff is already there. You know, the Cybertruck plant, I think, is 95% robotics, something like that. So I have a gazillion questions about this. And not even to mention, by the way, we were talking about transportation last time, not to mention robo-taxis and things like that. So I have a gazillion questions about these things. The first question I want to do is connected to the therapy session you all just gave me. At what point, or is there a point, when robotics in society will become a diminishment of human autonomy and dignity rather than an enhancement of that? Do we need to be worried? For example, I think Lois, was this you who put this in here? No, sorry. Someone put in here a note about, about, oh yeah, it was, I think it was, the Intuition Robotics LEQ.
Yep.
Who wrote this note? Fascinated by this, though. I'm not sure.
I wrote it.
Oh, that was you, Tamara. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was me.
Sorry. So the robotics LEQ is designed as a social companion for elderly individuals. It's a little tabletop robot. It's engaging. It's designed to be a companion for elderly individuals. It can initiate a video call with loved ones via the companion screen. And the pricing is $250. I'm not here to sell it. And then $50 a month or yearly or whatever. Will tools like this enhance the way we connect and our humanity? Or is this are they just taking it away, stripping away our humanity, just piece by piece? Lois, go ahead.
So I think we can't answer this for everyone. I think that robot would be wonderful for someone who is otherwise totally isolated. And when we had the pandemic, I knew a few people who used to go to the senior center, and that was the only place they had any companionship and communications and anything. And then the senior center closed. They were home alone, and they spent 2 years not talking to a single person other than the grocery deliverer. And for that situation, this might be a good thing. Now, in normal situations, if you're living in a household with, 5 other people, I don't think it's so great.
Lois, what does it mean to have a conversation with a robot? I don't know if any of you have done this, but I've started doing this more regularly now, where I will pull up ChatGPT on my phone. I'll press the little this button here, and then I'll wait for the little blue thing. And then, hey, Chat. Hi, Chat.
Hey there. How's it going?
And I find myself literally just having a conversation with this thing.
It's supposed to be an A on the end of that. How's it going, A? The
Canadian
robot
version
has an A. Yeah.
What does it mean?
Hear what you're saying,
that we're talking to machines rather than other human beings?
Well, the big fear is displacement.
It's not a rather than. This situation I'm describing, the person does not have a human being to talk to. And so talking to a machine, watching TV and talking back to the screen as you're watching it. I mean, that's the same sort of thing.
Yes, but you know what, Lois? So this person doesn't have another human being to talk to. The way we are solving that problem.
Right.
We're solving it by putting a computer in there or a robot in their home instead of putting a human being. If we can solve it with a robot, we could solve it with a human being. And so what
will the displacement
we're making a conscious choice. We're making a conscious choice to use robots in ways that are stripping away just a little bit of the humanity. Bill, go ahead.
Well, it's displacement is what everybody's scared to death of. I mean, there are fast food restaurants now that have an occasional human stopping by, and the rest of the time it is a delivery system that is also robots. My sister was telling me, she lives on a high-rise in San Francisco, and she was telling me that there is a service where one of those little robots, like you've seen little cart type things, will come in, navigate itself into the elevator, come up to your floor with permission. It will enter. It will actually have a little conveyor to put the boxes on your shelves, and then it would leave and disappear. So we have delivery drivers. We have the individuals who were stocking the shelves in the grocery stores. We have a tremendous range of human beings who become less necessary. Now, you can make the argument that those were not great jobs, but with that kind of displacement in the offing, with so many traditional, particularly young people jobs. I mean, I'm interested in the panel. What were our first jobs? I delivered newspapers as a kid before they stopped the kids doing it, and they now have adults delivering. The papers are gone now, but that's all history. You go into a fast food restaurant, and there are autonomous fast food restaurants, and there are no fry cooks and order takers and the rest of that. So with all these people being displaced, how are they going to get the necessary skills to have the advantage I had, which was learning how to get out of my own head and do customer service and talk to people and interact as a worker, understand what it meant to go to work.
At Arizona State University, Ernesto says, they're using robots to deliver food to the dorms. Small, cute little robots with large antennas.
Yep.
I think
And
what
to be honest,
fascinated.
Let me just
I
grab
was gonna
Dave
say, I
real
think-
quick. Let me get
Okay,
Dave in real
great.
quick. Go ahead.
I'm just going to reference Sherry Turkle one more time because she wrote a book called Alone Together, where she, from MIT, examined experiments that were done with placing people with, they weren't really fully fledged human robots. They were just toy dog, kind of cuddly robots, and they were companionship. That's all they were meant to be. And they finished the test, and surprisingly, a lot of these robots weren't found. Oh, it's around here somewhere. And people didn't want to give them up.
Yeah.
They were hiding them.
Mm-hmm. And even if I don't have a robot, I mean, we used to have cats that lived with us. When we got older, the last set of cats died, we decided, I won't get any more because 20 years from now, I'm going to not want to deal with it. Well, we still have stuffed animals and imaginary kittens, chasing kibble on the ceiling. And you can make up an imaginary friend at any age.
Yeah, but you know what, Lois? That feels very different to me. Nobody expects a cat to have a conversation.
Oh.
No one,
You've not had a
right?
cat, have you?
Ooh, you're going into that's religious territory right there.
Maybe
yeah.
a dog, but not a
No.
Okay, no
We're in trouble.
religion and no politics.
Somebody pull the fire alarm.
Yeah, we got to pull the fire alarm on this one. You can't talk at that. Cat
No, but
and
I
dog
mean, you don't
preference,
feel like it's different. I don't know.
No,
I
it is
do though.
different.
It is
I
different.
think that one of the things that fascinated me about it, which is why I brought it up, is that one of the key selling points was that caregivers can use this as kind of a break from caregiving, was one of their key factors. And I, just having been a caregiver, I'm a caregiver to 2 elderly people. I just spent some time in rest home when my mom was making a transition. And I will tell you, it was so sad to me how many people did not have anybody. And I thought, there are people who never see, they don't have people in their lives and they don't see anyone. And so in that case, I was like, maybe this would be helpful for them. But it's also, I immediately went the theater route and the TV writing route, and I was like, this is a story, right? Because there's something about it that is both fascinating and deeply sad that humanity is going this route. But at the same time, I can see Lois's point too, where there are people who don't have anything. And what was interesting is the robot itself starts to get to know the person and starts adapting and becoming more and more conversational. It can do, help you with your exercises. It's like touted as this is a way for them to stay healthy and also have someone to
Time
talk
to take your meds.
And so some of those things, and it did seem to have a connective feature to it. So it felt like it was something that you could use as a portal to talk to your friends and family with. So there's certain pieces of it that I was like, well, that's kind of the best and worst of what we have to offer in this space.
Do you remember was it Liar Liar? There's a movie where this guy, the dad is so busy that he sends his secretary with a video camera to the kid's soccer game. I have I work with very young children during the day, and we'll have a show or something, and the not every child has a parent who comes.
Right.
Now, I happen to know these parents because I charge them tuition. I happen to know they can afford to come if they chose to. But they've decided that a recording is just as good. And I can't help but think, Tamara, when you say that how sad it is that we've decided that a robot companion is just as good.
Right.
I get that it serves a purpose.
It's not
I
just
agree,
as good,
but
it's not.
But I think the thing is, if someone has no one, so the question is, would we want to deny that person having something versus nothing because we can't control what humans do? That's where it's really tricky, right? Like I watched and I was like, there's no way I would get to a point where even if it gave me a little break, I would ever use that as a replacement.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to me that I can understand why this was designed because someone saw a need, that's the thing. No one looked at this and was like, hey, you know what we could do? They said, here's the need and here's how we're going to solve that need. So the sad part is not the robot. The sad part is that there was a need for this to develop.
Let me get Dave in and then Sky will come over to you.
Just a quick note that if you ever apply to be a Meals on Wheels delivery person, you're actually vetted as to how comfortable you are speaking with elderly people who are alone. And sometimes the delivery of their meal is the only interaction they have with a human. And you're supposed to be prepared to sit down for 15 or half an hour and talk to them because that's part of the delivery process. So I'll just leave you there.
Yeah.
Well, I also wanted to mention that the most expensive and complicated robot in the world today is on the space station, and it's called Dexter, and it maintains the station. And it was invented by the Canadian contributors to the station. So there, I got to put the flag for Canada up.
Yeah, what was that? That was, now you're just bragging.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But it's the
that's
most
something to brag about.
Most sophisticated robot. If you want to talk robotics, come talk to the Japanese and us. Yes.
Sky and Lois.
Well, and that was going to be my question, was solving the problem. What problems need to be solved? And what I'm hearing is loneliness, identity, purpose, meaning. These are human problems. And what we're trying to do is, artificially ameliorate those issues. And again, that's where David, I think is your job going to be, out from behind the lectern pretty soon?
Oh, it already is. In many ways, it already is.
Well, and you talked about, people are flocking to the show of a big experience that they can get in a two-dimensional experience. I think there will be an opportunity very soon for us to find each other, even just the six of us, we've gotten to know each other much more intimately than we would have. We've talked about a subject, we've narrowed down a topic. We haven't had enough wine. Dave, come on, you're slacking off. Just saying. But there's that human interaction, connection, and this is where robots are, again, a tool. The thought that comes to mind is, just like locks on doors only keep people that are honest out. There will be bad things. Yeah. And the other two movies that come to mind, well, the three movies, 2001 Space Odyssey, speaking of computers running spaceships, that didn't turn out too well, but that was a science fiction years ago. But the other more recent one I put at the bottom of our notes here was Robert and Frank, which again was in 2012, talked about a man with dementia. The family put a robot caretaker in their space, had all the right initiatives, but it struggled with this question even that many years ago. And then the more recent movie is called Her, which is, again, a much more emotional experience of a man trying to, be connected. So with that, I do have to jump and be connected with my people group so we can stay connected. Thank you very much for your time.
Stay connected, Sky.
Bye. Like it or don't, I wonder if a part of this... Oh, I'm sorry, Lois is in there.
Hi. Sky distracted me. You know that? He just distracted me.
Do you want me to come back to you?
No. I've recovered. It was quick. So we've been talking about personal robots that would be companions and that sort of thing. But I think the greater use for robotics is in more industrial settings where it isn't a human problem that's trying to be solved. It is an industrial efficiency that people are going for. And we went through this when the car manufacturers got rid of that line with all the humans on it and started having positions with a robotic arm doing the same thing for every car. So we've been through this before. And I think that we will come out of it again with the same sort of traumas and solutions that we had to devise last time. So we're going to have people losing.
It's not always better though, because now I go to the grocery store and I have to check out all of my groceries.
Oh, see,
and what I miss.
See, I love that.
There's times that I love that too.
I don't want to talk
but
to
I
a
actually do miss knowing who my grocer is. Like there was a time where I knew the same people and, we would have an exchange like humans do. So I agree with you. There's times when I just love it. But then there are other times when I kind of think about it and think about the fact that I used to know the people who worked in my grocery store. It was a big store. I still knew all those people personally, and now I don't. So I do think that there's a give and take with all of this technology that is, I love technology. Yeah.
I just want to
not giving it up.
I want to, Bill, I'm going to jump over to you. I just want to pick up on something, Lois, that you just said and connect it to what was said before. And that is that if my dream would be that the robots that we use on the lines and in the factories would free up our time enough such that we could be with that elderly person, so that the robots are doing the work that, again, they're doing the menial stuff so that we can do the meaningful, creative stuff. The problem with that, what I just described, is that people need to earn money. And
not
so
only do they have to earn money, but they have a skill. And if we no longer say, okay, the robot's going to do this skill thing, you have to learn something else. And that's, I think, where we're going to have the biggest problem, is having people have to shift their careers. Now, how many people who were on that car line would then go and sit in a nursing home in somebody's room and be a companion?
Right. The opposite side of that argument, though, Lois, is that when when we got rid of horses and buggies, we figured it out. Like the people who repaired the buggies figured it out.
We will accommodate.
Right.
It'll be tough, though.
Right.
And it'll be tough on some people more than others.
Bill, go ahead.
Well, I was just contemplating, so the urbanization of the world and moving away from the farmhouse where the generations grew up and died together, essentially, so that the young people knew and had a daily interaction with the older people. That's what really has broken down and why we have these nursing homes full of lonely people to a certain degree. I'm simplifying, obviously. I'm wondering, this is going to really freak out all the topics here, if we ever get to the point where we talk about robots with pronouns like we, that they become so integrated into us that we think of them as extended family, and we consider them as more than dumb assistants and really do integrate them, not even just at the family level, but what if your community where you live, what if all the security cams now that are watching for scofflaws in the neighborhood are suddenly part of this network of family things, and everybody's monitoring all of everything, and we think of that as our security as opposed to my camera and his camera.
Bill, when we that's fascinating. I mean, what we think of our, getting back to cats and dogs, we think of them as part of our family.
We do.
And yet they're not nearly as smart as AI and robots are. I mean, they're much more cuddly.
It's debatable.
They're much more no, but I'm saying, like, I can have a full-on conversation with a robot with AI. That's a two-way conversation. I have conversations with my dog, but they're very one-way. So it's fascinating to think about personifying robots because
Yeah.
we
You
already
have to
do
ask
that.
your phone
Right.
what pronouns they prefer.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, but also that was one of the things that was really fascinating about looking at the presentation that they made in LEQ, which is people were feeling like they had a friend,
Yeah.
and they were personifying them. And I wonder, like, so the other side of that is there a way to use them that's good? Like, for example, my grandfather had Alzheimer's, and there was a point where he was not connecting with us. If he's connecting with a robot, is that a way for me to have connection in a way that I can't have in real life? So
We've been
there's
anthropomorphizing those things
Yeah.
forever. Disney started it way
Yeah.
back. And, Furbies come by and the kids were upset when they didn't take care of their Tamagotchi or their Furby well enough, and it passed.
I just read a story about that some toy maker and then it stopped 2 years in, it stopped supporting it. And so they all died.
Right.
And the kids
Right.
were just beside themselves.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. Bill and Lois, go ahead. I'm sorry,
Oh, I think
Dave and
I'm
Lois.
settling
Dave
to
and
Lois.
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead. Take the
Dave.
baton.
Okay, so we
Yeah,
have
I'll
an
let Lois go.
alternative. We have an alternative to a robotic companion to talk to you, and that is that people have figured out ways to connect with those folks who are at home. And there is a wonderful thing, the Senior Center Without Walls, where you can sign up, become a member, and then you can get onto calls, either a Zoom call or a phone call, on a particular topic. It's at a specified time, so you put it on your schedule, and then you get on and you talk to people. And so maybe you have a half a dozen people who are all going to be talking about keeping parakeets. And once a week, you get to go and you talk to these folks. And it is a way for housebound people to connect. So we don't have to rely on robots. We can come up with other solutions. We could, if we wanted to, have an ongoing Zoom meeting that was going all the time where people could just drop in and talk to each other. Now, not everybody could manage that because some people wouldn't know how to get on Zoom, but that's fixable. And wouldn't it be nice?
Well, I've created a writing community like that. So they do a digital writing retreat for 14 hours. I open it up once a month, and people from all over the world come in whenever they want. But I also have a 24-hour Zoom meeting that people will go into either by themselves to write, or they'll pop into the Discord. Hey, I'm going to be in the cafe. Anybody want to go? And they pop in. So it is a way of there is a way of connectivity through technology that we've all found.
Yeah, but I would argue that that's using technology to connect to humans.
Right.
That's not a human
Yes.
connecting to technology.
But
Yeah,
what
those are
if but that
communities of interest.
device that is connecting with that person can also connect with their loved one outside of there, because it does look like it is an advanced Zoom meeting, so so I think that it's not what your concern is, and what my concern is too, is that it's becoming a replacement for human connection. But what humans are still designing these things, and again, they're designing them for need. So if the need continues to be to innovate, to have connectivity, to find ways to do that, we all figured out during COVID that we were absolutely not going to stay by ourselves in our living rooms. And we created communities online almost immediately. Every one of these things started literally within days. I shut down 5 shows in 15 minutes, and by that night, I had 5 days of programming set up in a digital space. So I think that we are naturally, connected. Humans are connected. And I think that, yes, the concern that that's going to be a replacement, that's a concern we should have now.
Yeah.
Well,
without technology. Dave, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to go to the value of humans because we are afraid that humanity will be devalued in favor of efficient machinery or efficient systems or efficient knowledge or efficient sharing. And that communities of interest, as Lois and you have described, have been going on forever, long before any of this robotic stuff came along. When I was reading up on robots, I had a couple of questions. The right to repair, can they learn the consequences? That is, the concept of consequences of actions. Because programming doesn't necessarily need that. You're trying to achieve a thing, and when the program achieves the thing, you're a success and you can sell it. we have a whole new industrial service for robot repair. So talking about getting off the assembly line, well, you actually can become the service guy for the robots in the assembly line. And then you have an advanced knowledge of how the mechanics and hydraulics and everything else work.
Sure,
and you get
until
to do
the robots start repairing
different.
themselves.
Well, the space station's an example. It's
Right,
a robot
exactly.
that's repairing the robot. Yes.
I mean, we're not.
So I don't
really
believe
going to be necessary.
we're suffering an ethical difficulty here, because as long as we value humans, their creativity, their enthusiasm, their innovation, and their need for other people, we got no problems.
Yeah.
So one of the things to think about is, Tamara said that someone saw a need and made something to fill that niche. Well, yeah, but they made it in such a way that they're going to get rich off of it. So if there is a free way of doing it, just get on Zoom and talk to other humans. That's not going to be driven by a monetary goal. And I think as we are looking at these robots and programs and all sorts of stuff, we, the humans, need to consider what is the reason that this exists, and does it replace something that it doesn't need to replace? Now, I gave you the extreme example of someone housebound, and wouldn't it be nice to have a little robotic cat or something? But in the large view, who's going to make money off this? Who's going to get rich off this?
Yeah, the money is a really important piece of this conversation. Lois, you wrote something in the doc that really jumped out at me and struck me. So I want to pose that to everyone here. Earlier we were talking about safety and guardrails, and the value of the whole world coming together and making decisions together about this. So you wrote, will we have separate Republican and Democratic versions of AI? One exclusive, one inclusive. Could we have perhaps lethal and helpful versions? I'm wondering, and what you wrote there made me think about, are we just recreating the worst of ourselves in robot form so that we can go off and do even worse things, right? Like, I mean, I can absolutely imagine. I mean, we're seeing it right now, to be honest with you. You've got XAI, which is or Grok, which is run by Elon Musk, and he has made no bones about his political leanings. We saw all of the tech leaders up on the dais at Trump's inauguration, seated front and center. Who's to say that they're not going to create a Democratic version or a Republican version, and that literally we're going to just replicate the worst of ourselves?
Here's a scary thought. Can a robot programmed without compassion ever dominate a robot who is programmed with compassion? Do they always win? That's, to me, the single scariest question we have.
Right.
Because if it turns out to be true that one playing without rules always wins over one playing with rules, we have a
then we don't want to be the ones with the robot with rules. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
I hate to say it, but then how do you jettison your compassionate rules in order to play on an even field with the other team who is not adhering to compassionate rules, and then go back once you taste victory? Because that's been the problem. It's how many times has the rebel force who won over the tyranny of the embedded government turned out to be as bad or worse when they got in?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yes. We're not liberating ourselves with robots. Yeah.
Are you saying that the bad guys always win? Because I won't believe that.
Yeah.
It's not that they always win, but they always have an advantage that somebody cleverer has to find a way to neutralize. Because saying that I will do anything to win is very hard to compete against unless you're very, very crafty.
It may be fiction, but Mission Impossible had an episode about this called Dead Reckoning. If you want to watch that movie, it's about devised AI for submarine, and the submarine suddenly decides it wants to kill everyone on board, and it does. And then it goes to the bottom of the ocean and just sits there, happy. And our mission impossible is to go and kill that robot.
Right.
Yeah,
I hope we don't have a police that have to go out and kill a few robots that are going rogue. I don't want to be alive that day.
And Lois, it also comes back to what you said earlier about money. That money plays such an important role in this, because these companies, their obligation is not to morality or ethics or human compassion or any of that. It's toward the bottom line of their shareholders. That's their only obligation.
I think the thing that gives me hope, if there's any hope in that, is that the history of computers and the history of innovation has been people who are not rich doing work on their own for free, collaboratively and collectively. And the collaboration and collective thought process of humans who it will always kind of win to the next innovative thing. So that's the only thing that gives me kind of hope in this, is that it isn't if you have the money, you win. Because look at, DeepSeek, like they're putting billions in and people have gotten together and figured out how to do the next thing. So everything, the people who we're looking at now, who are the billionaires, they were the people who were in their garages putting together boxes of lights,
right,
and putting together the Altair and figuring out, everybody should have one of these. So as long as there are humans who are collaborating, because people aren't doing things in a vacuum, then I think that's what gives me hope, is that there's going to be people who are always collectively doing that. Because the fact of the matter is, robots or not, we're seeing Bill's point play out.
I've always thought that the traditional path for most of us through life is you start with I care about what I want, usually form a relationship with somebody, and you start thinking we. And then if you're lucky enough for that to all work smoothly, maybe you procreate, and then suddenly you shift to they as your. Now, there's a possibility that you go I, we, and we're going to stop there, and everybody else, or just you stop at I. There are people who stop at I.
You got to get
but
to
that
us.
natural progression usually ends up in community, as community takes care of the next generation and comes together to keep them safe and nurtures them. That is pretty deep in the human DNA, I believe. So I think if some of this stuff starts putting those deep-seated human things in jeopardy, if people start feeling like they cannot safely raise their families in this dystopian world, we do tend to rise up and get really ticked off.
So here's a little philosophy to round us out for this week. So the philosopher Martin Buber has a book called I, Thou. And in this book, he talks about there are two different types of relationships. There are I-it relationships and I-thou relationships. I-it relationships mean there's me and then there's you. And we are separate beings. And truly all I care about is what can you do for me? Because we're separate. I-thou relationships we're actually part of the same thing. We're part of the same organism, as it were. And so if I want to derive benefit, I also need you to derive benefit, because we are the same. You made me think of that when you're talking about the different relationships, Bill. And I don't, and maybe that's what robotics will never be able to achieve, is to have an I-thou relationship with another human being. They will always
all across cultures, that I, we,
absolutely.
them has always reigned supreme.
They will always be, to a certain, as human as they may seem, as comforting as they may seem, they will always be utilitarian. They should always be for our benefit, not for their own. I'm really grateful to all of you for spending some time tonight. Thank you. This is such a rich discussion. Or as Augustine put it, St. Augustine, John Snyder says, love people and use things. Trouble comes when you use people and love things. Wow. St. Augustine
Perfect
hit it on the nail. That's
Thanks,
fantastic.
John.
Thank you, John. That's beautiful. Love people and use things. Trouble comes when you use people and love things. I love that. With that, I think we'll call this one a day. I'm so grateful to you, Bill and Dave and Lois and Sky. Thank you all for joining us. We are here every Thursday night, and we invite you to come back and be with us whenever you're available, either by watching, by asking questions, or if you'd ever like to join us here on this esteemed panel of experts. You're always welcome. Just drop me a DM in Discord. We'll see you soon. Next time on The Rundown. Bye.